SuperTalk Mississippi Media production. You're listening to Thunder and Lightning on SuperTalk Mississippi, covering Mississippi State sports like nobody else. With SportsTalk Mississippi's Brian Hadad and Robbie Faulk of On3 Sports. Now get ready for Thunder and Lightning.
This is Thunder and Lightning here on SuperTalk Mississippi. Brian Hadad and Robbie Faulk here with you on a Thursday morning. Thanks for joining us here at supertalk.fm or wherever it is that you get podcasts from. We appreciate you guys out there, our great listeners, especially our servicemen and women out there taking care of us. I want to thank our sponsors over at Strange Brew Coffee House and Churn and Spoon Ice Cream. Start your day the right way with a trip to the drive-thru over at Strange Brew Coffee House here in Starkville or at Brupolo over in Tupelo. I want to thank Rob Hadaway for this one. Robbie, it'd be a little weird if Brupolo was in Bloody Springs.
That would be really weird.
I
mean, Blue Springs sounds nice. Holly Springs is fine.
Mm-hmm.
Bloody Springs? What's the history there?
Buddy, I don't know the answer to that question, but it does.
There was probably some battle in like the 1800s, and they just called the place Bloody Springs.
Very possible. Very possible. It's in Tishomingo County, so you're probably not too far from like Shiloh and all that. So,
yeah.
I
guarantee you, it probably came from the Civil War.
Probably so. Wherever you are in our great state, you can enjoy Strange Brew Coffee each and every morning. It's just a click away at strangebrewcoffeehouse.com. Let's see. The community was first settled in the early 1800s. This Wikipedia page is fantastic. You ready? Hunting is a common pastime for residents. Literally every city in Mississippi, you could say that about.
Wow, you just threw a dart at a map.
Hunting
Congratulations.
is a common pastime for residents in this Mississippi town. Do they also cook when they're hungry? What are we talking about here? God.
People have also talked about they enjoy breathing.
Yeah. At night, most of the city will sleep. Most of the city. Some stay away.
Nice.
Yeah. Pip Printing and Signs, reliable service for every business need. Great slogan. Let's make it a little clearer. If you've got a business, you already use printing. That's just part of the gig when you own a business. Are you using Pip Printing and Signs? Because if you're not with the best. If you want to have your message as clear and concise for your customers as possible, Pip Printing and Signs has a plan for that. If you need signage inside or outside of your building, Pip Printing and Signs can put that together for you. Whatever your business needs to get people talking about you, Pip Printing and Signs has a plan for that. Give them a call today. Tell them you heard about it on Thunder and Lightning. Call Cam Baker at 601-499-5216. He'll take care of everything else for you. He'll set up a plan and a program for you that will get customers talking about your business. When you need printing, call Pip today. College Corner, collegecornerstore.com is the place to find the maroon and white merchandise that you are looking for, and you are looking for it. So when you need new gear, you need to talk to the good folks over at College Corner. They've got the logos that you want. They've got a wide variety. They've got everything you need for your house, your car, your tailgate. It's all right there. 2 locations to serve you in the Jackson area. They're in Ridgeland by Fleet Feet, Flowood by the Half Shell, or shop online at collegecornerstore.com. Restaurant Tyler, Starkville's flagship restaurant for lunch, dinner, or Sunday brunch. The best meal in town is always going to be at Restaurant Tyler. If you're going to be in Starkville this weekend or any weekend, Sunday morning, get out of church, you're hungry, Sunday brunch at Restaurant Tyler is the best in town. It's not even close. How much better they are than everybody else. They're just fantastic. And if you haven't been there, you're definitely missing out. Plus, as always, we tell you have a 1 in 3 chance, I think, of seeing Robbie Faulk. So you never know. You never know. I mean, if that would make you happy, if great food and seeing Robbie Faulk makes you happy, Restaurant Tyler on Sunday is a good choice for you.
It might make people sad, but the food would make you happy again.
Balances it out. Yeah.
Just don't look at me. Just look at your plate. That'll fix everything. I promise.
And he's not saying don't look at him like a superstar. Like he's not saying, what are you doing looking at me? He's saying looking at him will make you sad. He's trying to help you.
That's true.
Okay. When you want the best meal in town, it's at Restaurant Tyler. Priority One Bank, 16 locations to serve you throughout Central Mississippi. Let PriorityOneBank.com be your guide and let them show you not only where they're located through that website, but how they're going to help you manage your money, help you invest, help you prepare for your future. Now more than ever, it's so important to be able to talk to people about your money. You got a question about your money, you want some money on the phone right away, you get that kind of service with Priority One Bank. Let Priority One Bank make you their priority. Yeah, play the song. Cruton, 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 Cruton. Cruton, 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 Cruton. Mississippi State back into the JUCO ranks at EMCC. Xavion Hardy, 4-star defensive lineman, an offer sheet from what I can tell, basically everybody in the SEC. And this is a guy that, Paul Jones was talking about him yesterday on On3 and saying that when he first popped up on State's radar back in the summer, that's not a guy they thought he thought Mississippi State would end up landing. So credit to Coleman Hutzler, to David Turner. We haven't given them a lot of credit this year, but credit there for getting this guy into the boat. And this is a guy, Robbie, that, I think you said this the other day on the message board. A lot of State's current commits on defense could probably already be playing for Mississippi State and starting for Mississippi State. Xavion Hardy appears to be one of those guys, a true difference maker, they hope, at the defensive tackle position. They needed a player like this. Yeah, a guy, like you said, and along with the other JUCO guys, could probably right now help Mississippi State. And he's one of those, as he's picking up a lot of double teams right now at EMCC, has still made a difference, got in the backfield. I think leads the team with 3.5 sacks in the first few weeks of the season. Just a big physical guy. He's what you look for in an SEC defensive lineman. He's what Mississippi State's missing this year. There's no one on this roster right now that looks quite like him. And you had to beat out some really good teams for this guy. Georgia's coming after him, Alabama. Already had a really good relationship with South Carolina's staff. I believe he was actually placed there initially anyways. So beating out that staff who was already, deep in the recruiting game with him, really impressive job of Mississippi State winning this battle. And it was a battle they had to win. And I know a lot of people, they look at the junior college recruiting now and say, why do you do this? Mm-hmm. And I totally get that line of thinking. But if there are people that are physically capable of helping you compete in the SEC that are already here, why would you not take advantage of those resources? And for Mississippi State, I think, especially on the defensive line and other defensive spots as well, if you can get those pieces already on board before the transfer portal even opens, I think you've done a really good job, because you don't want to get to the transfer portal and then you're starting to try to build your defensive line. You would like to start putting pieces together right now, and then in the transfer portal, you can add what you need there. And, this is the guys they're going after right now. Some are impact players. Some are guys that are going to be really good depth position players, guys that, in years past were really good players for you on the defensive line that, I think that really helped your defensive line go to that next level, because it's one thing to have a true impact all SEC guy. To have a all SEC guy and right behind him is a guy that can come in and plug a hole, or a guy that can make a play for you just the same, is big too. You got to have depth at these positions. That's what Mississippi State's missing right now. It's not just a talent thing for them. It's the fact they just don't have bodies. Yeah. And I think that's what they're trying to build right now, is a little more stability up front to make this a more formidable defensive group. And one thing they have to sell is playing time. I mean, and even in this day and age of NIL and players getting paid, the ability to come into a recruiting pitch and say, look, you see what we are right now. You can come in next year and be a potential starter and certainly a contributor. That still goes a long way with players, I would like to think. And for Mississippi State, it's been interesting because they've picked up 3 4-star recruits in the last month since they lost to Toledo. And you would think that would be a time where, guys would be decommitting and, the class would be falling apart. and it feels like it's getting stronger, which leads me to two questions. One, are you surprised by that? And then the second question we'll deal with after, but go ahead and answer that one. Are you surprised by State's recent recruiting success?
In some ways I am, in some ways I'm not, just because you knew that after all of the negativity that was coming, they needed some wins. So they were going to have to go out and they were going to have to work a little harder on the recruiting trail to try to get some positive momentum, because in a season like this, with that, it's going to be tough to sell the results side of things. The best thing that you can do if you're Jeff Lebby is sell the young talent that they have on the roster and sell the recruiting class. Hey, this isn't going to be like this for long. We got a lot of guys, and I think you probably see him come out a little more in the media and talk about, the excitement of what they have in the future, and they've had, some positive results in the recruiting trail, things like that, stuff that can really kind of get them going, at least from a publicity standpoint. So I knew that they were going to make a push to try to get some guys on board. I'm a little surprised they were able to get Xavier Hardy at this point. I thought that they would have a good shot with him, but I thought it was also going to be pretty tough. To go ahead and get him committed is huge. I thought Tony Mitchell kind of the same way. Not a huge surprise on Tyler Lockhart, but to now have 3 4-star guys that I think all 3 are capable of helping you next year, that is going to go a long way on recruiting other players in the class, because they're able to look at the tangible evidence of Mississippi State adding talent despite struggling right now, and you can preach to these players, hey, we have playing time on the table for you. We have a starting spot on the table for you. It's just a good recruiting tool. If you're a great recruiter, if you're somebody that's really good at that job, you can kind of turn the chicken salad and the chicken, what in the chicken salad.
Chicken dropping.
Yeah, there we go.
Droppings.
I think that'll suffice.
Yeah, we'll make that work. Here's my other question, and that's a question people have been asking on message boards. We've been talking about this defense for weeks now, and it's been poor. There's no getting around that fact. And the point where we've said on the show that it'll be a surprise to us, I think, if Coleman Hutzler is brought back for another season, if David Turner is brought back for another season. So what happens to these guys? Tyler Lockhart, as you mentioned, and his brother's here, his best friend's here, a little different with him. But these JUCO guys, Mitchell was recruited by Coleman Hutzler at Alabama and is now committed to Mississippi State. Hardy talked a lot about David Turner in his commitment story. What happens with Mississippi State if these guys are no longer on staff?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I feel like, especially these 3 that they already have on board, I feel like they're still in pretty good position. You keep producing like this, if you're Coleman Hutzler and David Turner, they'll return for next year. I feel like if you have some good pieces in place and Hutzler and Turner are doing a good job off the field in recruiting, then Lebby's probably going to give them a shot to see what he can do with better talent and more depth. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but it's only fair. If you give a guy an opportunity, if he's producing and trying to bring in better talent that can make this team a lot better next year, it's only fair to give the guy a shot with some more of his players. And again, I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but if these 2 are helpful in some way in trying to find a way to fix this thing, they're probably going to be given a shot to do it again. So I don't know where they stand right there, to be honest, but they've certainly made an impact on all 3 of these players, because Hutzler's recruiting Tyler Lockhart. He recruited Tony Mitchell. He knew Tony Mitchell from his Alabama days, and then David Turner recruited Xavier Hardy. So both of those guys were pivotal in getting all 3 of these players recruited.
And recruiting is just so important. I feel like I really have come around to the idea that Jimmies and Joes are more important than X's and O's 9 times, especially on the defensive side of the ball. You need to be able to scheme up the offense a lot. But if you've got great players, then you're going to be great defensively.
Oh, yeah.
See Alabama, see Georgia. I mean, Pete Golding is a great example. I think Golding's a good defensive coordinator over at Ole Miss. He's good. But when you have
There's a reason that defense looks a lot different than it did last year.
Because they added Walter Nolan and they added the Princey Mamalane, and that wasn't an audio bloop there. That's how I pronounced his name. I don't know how to pronounce it. And it doesn't really matter how I pronounce it either. They added talent. And so, especially when you got a guy like Nolan, who's a legit first round defensive tackle, those guys, they don't grow on trees, and they turn defenses. They give defenses another level. So, if Hutzler can be an elite recruiter for Mississippi State. Now, that being said, he needs to go out and do a little bit more. State is still not doing well in the high school ranks as far as defensive linemen go. You've got, a few of them here in the state this year. You're not getting either one of them. There's two in the top 10 on the On3 rankings. You're not getting Andrew Maddox. You're not getting Jacoby Harpson. They're both going to Ole Miss. London Simmons, who State didn't even recruit that hard, from what I was told, is going to Alabama. So that feels like that's a miss just on the surface. Kevin Otis, we talked about him a few weeks ago. He's headed to Arkansas. So is Reginald Vaughn from Hartfield. These are guys going to SEC schools, and that's 5 defensive linemen in the state of Mississippi that are all going to go to different SEC schools, but none of them are Mississippi State. I don't know that they're going to flip any of those guys, but State needs a couple of wins on the defensive front to make me feel really good, especially with Turner, who, the rumor mill is strong on him about, not being too big into NIL. And nowadays, not being too big into NIL is basically, to me, is saying, I don't want to do this job. If you're not big in NIL, you can't coach anymore, because that's what this job entails at this point. So it's going to be very interesting. We 2 months, I guess, 2 months and a week, I suppose, until signing day. And, we'll see what State's class looks like at that point. What is the class jumped into the top 25, did it not, with the addition of
25th.
So 25th, I mean, they were in the 50s just a couple of weeks ago. So the addition of Mitchell, Lockhart, and Hardy have got them going in the right direction. We'll see who they continue to add in the coming weeks. But I agree with what you're saying, though, that it's good to see some recruiting momentum, even when the results on the field aren't great. And it proves a point that we've mentioned here on the show. I think these players aren't as emotional as fans are, because for the most part, they're not fans. A lot of these kids, they're not. They didn't grow up Mississippi State fans. They didn't grow up, locked in the way you may have grown up as a listener, doing stuff. So that they see that. Very rarely do they. You expect a 17-year-old kid to see the big picture, but sometimes they do, and this is definitely one of those times. So good pickup for Mississippi State. You want to make a prediction on the next one? Who's the next guy to commit to Mississippi State? Give me a good name. Give me somebody I'm excited about. Bill Cunningham. Go ahead.
Yeah, right.
Is that ship sailed? You think it's over?
I don't know. I mean, I just think there's going to be too much. I think there's going to. I just think there's going to be enough evidence for him to make that kind of call to come to Mississippi State. From seeing the offense, I just think he's just going to stick with Bama.
Yeah.
They're exciting. It's a chance for him to kind of branch out a little bit. It's a big brand. I just think State needs to show a little more offensively, and it's just not there. I'll say this. You touched on it a little bit. The priority number one for State is making sure that you lock down more of these Mississippi kids.
Yeah.
You should. We shouldn't be looking up at the state of Mississippi and seeing the top 4 in the state going somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a problem for both schools at this point. I mean, you do have, State's got 3 of the top 10, and I mean you can switch these rankings and it's different on both, but State's got 3 of the top 10 with our industry rankings that we have, which is like the composite. And Ole Miss has 3 of the top 10, but the top 4 are all going out of state.
Right.
And that's something that has become a trend. The book is out. Everybody knows about the state of Mississippi now. They know that the talent is here. They know that these kids are tough. They know these kids can get on the field relatively quick. And the state of Mississippi produces NFL players. So, I mean, there are too many guys out there. You talked about London Simmons, like State wasn't really like on him hard, and he goes to Alabama. And it's like, how is this happening? And then I think back to Jaden Wally's younger brother Justin. They were told by a guy running the recruiting department, not ready to offer this kid, and he goes to Minnesota and is a all conference defensive back there. It's just it's a trend that Arkansas shouldn't come in here and get 2 kids,
right?
Which I think State was kind of a little lax on Reginald Vaughn, but still, I mean, like, you shouldn't lose 2 kids to Arkansas,
right?
That are in state. So it's a trend that State has got to do a better job of locking these kids down.
Yeah. I mean, there's no disagreeing with that statement, none whatsoever. So, all right, let's move into the rest of the show. That's brought to you by our friends over at the Mississippi Beef Council, who want to remind you that beef, it is what's for dinner. If you're cooking out this weekend, nothing beats the sizzle of beef on the grill. And if you don't feel like cooking out, well, go get a steak. We got 100, maybe 1,000 great steak houses across the state of Mississippi. You can't drive too far without running into one. So whoever's doing the cooking, you or somebody else, make it a red meat kind of weekend. I promise you won't be disappointed in that. Beef, it's what's for dinner. Thank you to our friends at the Mississippi Beef Council. Two Brothers Smoked Meats in the heart of the Cotton District is the place to find the smoked Southern soul food that you are looking for, and you certainly are looking for it. You're going to be looking for it. You're going to be wanting to eat it. It's right there for you in the Cotton District. Two Brothers Smoked Meats, and of course, if you're a little more refined, you can always grab a fancy sandwich over at the Older Brother. That's right, fancy sandwiches. Who ever heard of such a thing before the Older Brother existed? Well, now it's a mainstay here in Starkville. Both in the Cotton District, Two Brothers Smoked Meats, and of course, the Older Brother, two of my favorite places in all of Starkville. Great products, great service. Every business likes to promise it to you. They deliver it to you at Advantage Business Systems. They've been doing it for 50 years. 50. Wherever you go in your business, you got to have technology there. You got to have a copier. You got to have a printer. You got to have, computers and laptops. You got to have these things. And those things break. They're machines. Just how it is. So you want to get a good price. You want great name brands, and then you want to know that the service is there after the sale. I'm going to give you the number to call. It's Advantage Business Systems. We're all three of those things under one roof. They're in Mississippi. You're in Mississippi. That means a lot of times if you have a problem, they'll be able to fix them the exact same day. 601-362-9192, or you can visit them online at absms.com. Find out how Advantage Business Systems will help your business do business. Before you go to the games this fall, you need to head over to Maroon & Co. I am rocking my brand new shirt that I got from Maroon & Co. By the way, just in case you're wondering, the white shirt, the buffalo chicken dip stain did come out of it. So,
oh, good.
I don't have to.
We got that at the nick of time.
Yeah. Thank you to whoever makes those shirts for the fabric they use and for Dawn Power Wash. Got right out there. So
that'll do it.
Maroon shirt, which I love. I love this shirt. It's become my favorite shirt actually. And you can have it too. It's right there at Maroon & Co. Got this light maroon with the state script. I'm a big fan. They have a selection unlike anybody else, stuff you can't find anywhere else. It's right there at Maroon & Co. And, of course, use our promo code. You can use it online or in-store. Thunder15, 15% off regular priced items. Some exclusions do apply. Before you go to the game, you need to go to Maroon & Co. Let's keep the bye-week blitz going today with Robbie's favorite guy, Coach Sam Purcell. He had some pointed comments about Robbie and his physical fitness, I will say, here in this interview, but also a lot more to learn about him and his team in this upcoming season. Let's talk now with Coach Sam Purcell as we continue the bye-week blitz. Well, let's continue the bye-week blitz. People always tell me that I'm negative, that I'm like this really angry person. I don't know what you're talking about. I love to talk nice. And I'm going to talk nice to my guest right now, Coach Sam Purcell, Mississippi State women's basketball. looking forward to another great season from him. Coach, I'm going to ask you this. I got a couple of questions that I asked Chris Jans yesterday, but I want to get both of y'all's thoughts on them. And we'll start with this one. 10 years ago, year 3 for a coach was always the big year, right? At that point, you've been there for 3 seasons. You've built your program. You've recruited 3 classes. Most of the roster is yours. It's not the same way with roster construction anymore, but is it fair for fans to say a coach that's in year 3, we're going to have a higher expectation than we had in year 1 and year 2?
No.
Okay.
I'm just being real. You just answered it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy, right? That's why our hashtag this year is own it. You got to just own the chaos that's coming within college sports. But hopefully, as a head coach, you're building a program where kids don't want to leave. You're hoping that you have a fan base that's one of the top in the nation, that you have an environment that, you know what, you can't get this anywhere else across the country. And those are the factors that I look at when you're judging a program is who are we internally? Because some of this external stuff, you can't control.
So that being said, you've got a roster, you got a team with a lot of new faces on it. And, basketball, so much more than football, in my opinion. Chemistry is so important. How do you feel about the chemistry of the group that you've got right now?
Yeah, so I got a lot of great individual talent. All right, you look at somebody like Anaya Russell, who was ESPN top 25. Destiny McFall, #1 junior college recruit in the country that we were able to get. All right, Jerkayla Jordan, we all know about Jerk. One of the best guards in the SEC, not only that in the SEC, but in the country. Debrisha Poe, 40% three-point shooter. But now we got to put it together, all right? And I'm telling all our fans, I've told my coaching staff, we got to fail fast, and we got to learn because we haven't been in the ringer. So every day in practice, I'm trying to put them in situations that they have to learn and grow from, so when the lights come on, we can come out ahead.
That's interesting to hear you say, again, to make that comparison, you hear about situational practice. That's a football thing. They want to practice goal line and 2-minute. What is situational basketball practice?
Well, first and foremost, time and score. All right. What sets am I going to call that you've never been in a situation with me that are game winners? All right. Who's taking the shot? I just named several great individuals, but who's going to take the moment when the moment occurs? And then most importantly, who's a pack of dogs that are ready for a dogfight that we got to get a stop and make sure the other team doesn't score?
You mentioned Jerkayla Jordan. I think that, among the players returning in the SEC, she might have been one of the most important ones, not only just from the production that she brings you, but the leadership standpoint as well. When you got the word that she was returning, what was that first reaction like?
Ooh-wee. I was Tootsie rolling, whatever modern term in today's kids dance terminology. I try to do it as a 44-year-old man. Yeah. And it wasn't pretty. No, I think that part, I think me and Jans always talk about is what fans should value. Are your best players coming back? All right. If your best players are coming back, then you're doing something right. And those are things that you can control. For her not to leave in 2 years and be a part of my process is a statement. She loves Mississippi State. She is Mississippi State. And she wants to make sure Mississippi State wins.
Another question I asked Coach Jans yesterday, because you just got so many new faces. We can't just sit here and roll through all of them. So I'll ask you this. Who has surprised you the most since their arrival here in Starkville?
Ooh, wow. That's a tough one, man. I'm telling you, everybody surprised me. If I had to give one, I say Destiny McFall, the #1 junior college player in the country. She's electric. She's left-handed. She's a scorer. And the best part is her best basketball is ahead of her. Every day we come to practice, she's getting better, and that excites me as a head coach.
I think something that excites Mississippi State fans is you adding Victoria Vivian to your staff. I mean, just an absolute legend here at this university, not just in women's basketball, but just in sports. If I had to do a Mount Rushmore of the last decade at Mississippi State, I think she's on the list with Dak and Jake Mangum and people like that. What exactly does she do for your staff? And then what is she going to bring to Mississippi State now that she's back?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. First and foremost, what she's going to bring to our staff is everything. All right. Everything that when you give a speech that we have a vision that we're trying to sell, she's done it. All right. When we're in those locker rooms that you got to understand what it takes to win. She's living it currently right now at the highest level in the WNBA. And then most importantly, my kids who want to be pros, what a great resource to have someone in an active market who understands the right agents, what's going on to make a professional team, and most importantly, where women's basketball is going. So it's a blessing to have her. And then just the youth movement, right? Us coaches, man, we get older every single day. So to have somebody that's hungry to get in the coaching profession, she'll admit it. She's got a lot to learn. But I've got a full staff of head coaches here. They're going to mentor her and help make sure we put her in place so she can have success in this business.
You got to replace one of the top front court players in all of women's basketball from a season ago in Jessica Carter. You got a lot of options there. Is that something where you have to do by committee, or is somebody going to step forward and be that similar kind of player?
Well, first of all, somebody's got to step forward, right? Because like you said, we're losing 30 minutes a game. So let's start off with Neer. Neer was a freshman last year that, you know what? She could have transferred too. She only played 10 minutes and she was the top 50 kid in the country coming out of high school. So for her to learn behind a pro and stick with the process, I'm excited for her opportunity. And then Kayla, all right, from Georgia Southern. She started off at Penn State. Everybody's got to remember this is the last year of COVID kids. So I've got a lot of fifth-year kids, which is great. Older's better. So I'm looking for a big year from her. And then my wild card is Medina. All right, Medina from Kenya. And let me tell you something. The young lady was not here all summer for our conditioning test, okay? I had kids training for 4 months to pass this test. Medina shows up in the fall and on the first week passes the test. All right, I've never seen nothing like it. The kid has a motor and energy about her, but most importantly, she is prideful and thankful to live here in the United States and just living life for what all Mississippi State is giving her. And I know she's excited to get back.
How quickly would I fail the conditioning test?
Oh, done. You already failed it now that you're thinking about it.
Oh, it's that type of, if mentally I'm already beaten. Okay, you got my attention.
It's a mindset thing.
I want to see Robbie take it. To be honest with you, I think he'd have a little better chance than maybe.
No, he's definitely done. He's great at tweeting people, but you know what? He's not gonna be able to handle it if people tweet at him. And that's my guy. That's my guy.
I wasn't expecting to smack on Robbie today, but we'll do it. We'll do it. Missed the NCAA tournament a season ago.
He knows I love him, so
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Missed the NCAA tournament a season ago. What's the key to getting back this year?
Being pissed.
Don't say more wins. Don't say more wins. Don't say it.
Yeah. No, being pissed. I'm pissed. I hope I can say that on air.
You can say it. It was a podcast. You can say whatever you want.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm pissed. All right, we're one game short. We're third place in the SEC in the second week of February. And this is what I tell everybody. It's a bad loss. You played the bottom half. There is no bad teams in the SEC. The bad teams in the SEC have 2 to 3 McDonald's All-Americans. There's no other conference in the country like the SEC. But the problem was we didn't finish. And I look in the mirror. I lead this program. I got to make sure we get tough and we finish out what we started. We did it. But what I am proud about is when you had teams around the country that didn't play in postseason play and just went ahead and counted and quit, my kids didn't. My kids put on that uniform and we played in that WBIT. And not only did we play in it, we smacked people. We came out upset and beat Georgia Tech, who was a great team, who lost to 5 teams by 2 points or less in the top 25 by 40. Then we come and play a TCU team that's rise on the country. They were in the top 25 earlier and beat them at home, and then lost a heartbreaker at Penn State. So for us to, bow up and fight as dogs is what makes me excited for this year.
I feel like from a basketball perspective this season, both from the men and the women, there's as much anticipation as I can remember. There have been some seasons where the men were good and the women weren't as good. There have been some seasons where the women were elite and the men weren't as good. But it really feels like this year, the anticipation for both programs is incredibly high. Do you feel that? And is there sort of a symbiotic relationship with, hey, when they're good and we're good? I mean, you got that doubleheader game in Tupelo, and that should be a huge crowd for both teams.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you asked me this question. I tell people all the time, this place is special. And it's not to be, he's trying to be employee of the month. It's real. Me and Chris Jans, like you said, we got hired at the same time. So what a cool relationship, right? But then we have a mutual respect for each other like no other. And then I give Chris Jans a lot of credit. I say this every year. The way he values women's basketball and my young women, his players take on his personality. They're high-fiving us when we see each other in the hump. We're cheering each other on, like, hey, guys, when we go through each other's practice. And there's that cool behind-the-scene energy so that when games occur, we go to their games and they come to ours. So it's great to see us both having success. but we're each other's best, fans. And it's really cool to be a part of this environment.
I'm looking forward to tip-off this season. Looking forward to watching your team compete. I think you're going to have another outstanding year here at Mississippi State. And always a pleasure to have you on. I don't drink coffee, so having you on gives me my little caffeine boost for the day. I'm good to go now.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about, man. I appreciate you having me on, man. Let's do this again.
Absolutely. Coach Sam Purcell, thanks so much, man.
All right, thank you.
If you're listening to that interview and you're like, man, Hadad had some good questions. Very interesting. He knows his stuff. I will give full credit. I hit Robbie up. I was like, I need some questions. So I want to make I give credit where credit is due. So I was like, hey, I need some questions here. What do you got for me? So Robbie, thank you for that. It's Sam Purcell, right? The man gets excited about literally everything, but it does seem genuine, the excitement he has for this team. Some new faces, but I think he's got that good concoction of veterans and new faces that, he should be able to get back into the NCAA tournament this year.
Yeah, I've talked to a few people that have seen the team practice, and hopefully I can see a little bit on Thursday when we talk to Purcell, if I have some time. But they like the camaraderie. They like the connection that the team has. They really feel like this is a team that has a chance to be a lot closer and play more as a cohesive unit. I mean, I think if you saw that team down the stretch last year, you could see something was off with them when they had lost 6 straight games. And sometimes, a fresh roster can be, just what the doctor ordered. I think it's really big for them to have a player like Jerkayla Jordan back on this team, who is going to be able to have that kind of star status to her. And that's a player that you can really build around. And I like some of the pieces around it too. The big question is kind of like for the men is the center position. What's going to happen there? You just lost a 6th-year player in Jessica Carter in the post, who was an all-conference caliber player. Now you've got some new faces there. Is Medina Okot, who comes from overseas from Kenya. Is she going to be able to help this team this year? They're still waiting out some eligibility issues with her. That would be a tremendous help for them. Is Q Montague going to be able to help the team in a significant way this year? She was a good role player off the bench, but she's going to be asked to do more. There's a lot of question marks that I think is going to be answered fairly early, but this is going to be a very difficult schedule. This is as tough as the SEC has been in a long time, top to bottom. So it should be a fun year.
When you said that thing about the SEC, you could be talking about the men's side too. As I told Jans in our interviews, like I'm used to seeing Alabama number 1, but not in basketball. So,
yeah.
I mean, both the men and the women's sides, it's just the conference has done a good job of making basketball a priority. It used to just be it was Kentucky on one side on the men, it was Tennessee on the women, and that was it. And then, Dawn Staley comes in and gets South Carolina going. Vic Schaefer gets Mississippi State going. And now everybody else has kind of picked up the pace as well. Where do you see this team in the SEC this year? Where do they finish?
I think it's probably a top 10 team in the SEC that can kind of maneuver one way or the other in there. It's just going to be so that middle of the pack is going to be so tough. I think you're going to have South Carolina probably at the tip top, and then LSU kind of nipping at their heels a little bit. But Alabama is a team that I think is really up to their game. I don't know if it's NIL related or what, but the last few years they've been a different looking team. And you got all these other teams underneath. Texas is going to be right up there at the top. Now that they've entered the fray, Oklahoma is going to be right up there at the top. That this might be the 2 Big 12 teams. This might be collectively their best sport right away. Outside of maybe softball.
Yeah, softball
so
for sure, yeah.
This is going to be a really fun year, and I think those 2 are going to disrupt the whole hierarchy because of what they bring to the table. They have really good coaches, obviously, with Vic Schaefer leading the charge there. So it's going to be a tough year. State gets both of those teams at home, so it should be fun.
We shall see. All right. tomorrow on the bye week blitz, we're going to do a little something different. Our friend Alden Thornhill is going to drop by. Tell us about the Boardtown Grand Prix. It's coming up a little later this football season. Another great event here in Starkville. Plus, he's got some news that let's just say Mississippi State got a win over Ole Miss in tomorrow's news. We'll talk about that on tomorrow's podcast as well. Plus, we'll do a little football talk as we go into this off week as well. Guys, have a great Thursday. Robbie and I will be back with you on Friday. For Robbie Faulk, I'm Brian Hadad. Thanks for listening to Thunder and Lightning here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Your time is up, my time is now. You can't see me, my time is now. It's the franchise where I'm shining now.
A SuperTalk Mississippi Media production.